It does not make any sense.
so
I'm counting on children. Come to my house. Is that true? Anyway, good evening. Good evening. I would like to welcome everybody here and also continue the meeting. We were in executive session, the board, for about a half an hour, and now we are moving into our regular meeting. Again, I'd like to welcome everybody here and ask all the people present. There's a notebook over there in the corner if you would just sign in so we have record of who our guests are and so forth as well. Alrighty, we are moving into 1.5, the approval of the minutes of January 12th, 2017 and January 25th, 2017. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Anybody have any questions or issues with those minutes? All right, roll call.
Sylvia?
Present.
Steve?
Yes.
Sylvia, say yes. I'll feel better if you say yes, thank you. Ann?
Yes.
Aida?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
All right, those minutes have been approved. Again, I'd like to welcome people who are here and thank you for coming out on this cold night. Communications 2.1, we have a letter from Kelly Dunn dated January 23rd, 2017. And that looks to be it right now. I'd like to recognize the members of the audience and give anybody who has anything they'd like to address the board with an opportunity to do so. And if you would step up and use the microphone, please, that would be great.
He's not comfortable
Mr.
stepping up to the mic
Hurwitz.
at all.
Comfortable here. Hi, I'm Eli Hurwitz. I'm representing the Yellow Springs Educational Association. Thank you, Madam President, for the opportunity to speak to the board. And tonight I would like to recognize the amazing work of some of our members, Kate Lohmeyer, John Gudgel, Dave Smith, Shannon Morano, Elizabeth Simon, with two students, Danny Worsham and Lorian Chavez, have organized and this next Thursday are putting on a day of empowerment for all of the students at the high school and middle school. It's turning into a really powerful experience for our students, and I want to compliment really all of the high school and middle school staff that are going to be stepping away from one kind of learning to support another kind of learning that all of our students need. So I think we have amazing teachers here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It is very exciting. All right. Would you like to address the board in particular?
Oh,
Are you?
I had a question about something, but I've never been to a school board meeting, and I was just kind of interested to see what's going on. Hi, Sean.
All right. Well.
Would you like to introduce your hat, which I just found?
Oh, yes, this is the hat that makes people talk to me.
Yeah. It worked.
Well, you walked in right at the right time if you would like to address the board, but
Oh, okay, sure. I was just wondering, I've been reading through K-6 education proposals and budget, and I have some concerns about, cuts and flat lines in the budgets for our local schools. But I was also wondering about what the impact on your work here, if it goes through his proposed requirement that all school boards include 3 members of the business community unelected.
yeah, go ahead.
So I think I've heard some rumblings about this for several years now, and there's been some interest in it. I just actually had a conversation with somebody about this earlier today, and if we're going to do that, I think my belief is I'm totally opposed to it, 100%, and I think our board would probably be. I'm not going to speak for the board actually, but I think there's strong opposition to it probably across the state and school boards and school districts. It sort of has an underlying patronizing nature to it, the notion that somehow schools can't take care of their own finances, and so we need business leaders to make sure that they're the ones actually leading school boards, and so I think it's just as arbitrary as requiring 3 plumbers to be on the school board, or 3 teachers to be on the school board, or 3 so that would be actually better.
We could actually use some plumbing.
Yes, right, exactly. The point is that it tears at the fabric of our democracy, and ultimately what this is about the people having a choice to elect whoever they want. And the more stipulations you put on that, I think the less democracy you have. That's my feeling.
Yeah, we really haven't talked about it as a board yet because it hasn't really come up, but.
Okay.
It's also, that whole budget will now get thrown into the sausage grinder.
Right,
And
yeah, and that's part of why I'm here, because I've been meeting to go talk with Rick Perales about it, and so I wanted to get some perspective from
Okay.
you to,
Great.
yeah.
Are you meeting with Naomi and Naomi?
She's part of a group that I'm
Okay,
in, yeah.
gotcha, wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. She talked to me earlier today.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, it sounds like she's doing some good work. I'm not in her small group, but I'm in the
Okay.
So one thing, I apologize, I didn't ask you to identify yourself. so-
Oh, yeah. I'm Heather Crystal. I'm a person who lives in town.
Great.
Parent of someone who will be here eventually.
Good, thank you. All right, well, and you're welcome to stay and.
Thanks for being involved down there.
Yeah, I'm curious, you know.
Yeah. Good. Okay, we are going to move on to schools in action. We have guests here.
And I'm going to pass it on to Donna first, who's going to introduce our guests.
Yeah, we have 3 guests, and they're actually people that have been working at the high school. They've been coming in and working with Jody Chick and the Bulldog Brigade, the group I've been talking about and you guys have been following. But a lot of that wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for these people from the County Board of Developmental Disabilities. We have Kathy Kleiser, right here, and Josh and Brenda Mueller.
Do you all want to cut in on here so Jacob can get you on the
Right,
camera?
exactly.
It's very important to be on camera.
I wanted them to come. I wanted you to see their faces since they've been a big part of that program. And as soon as they offered to come in, Jody jumped on it and the collaboration has grown. And I think it's kind of been a model for other school districts from what I'm hearing. So I wanted you to meet them and hear a little bit about what they do.
Great, thank you.
So can you just share a little bit about what you do with the board and then what you've been doing with the board with our schools at least? And I want to tell you from what I've heard and heard a lot from Jody and all the work, I appreciate so much you all reaching out to Yellow Springs and really trying to build that connection between the K-12 schools and what happens after graduation for these young men and women. So.
Well, we're very excited to be here. This was our first school that we got started with, and it's kind of been a model. To review why we ended up coming to Yellow Springs when our manager Carmen Royer had wanted to make a commitment for our board to get involved with the schools. There was a real need for our county DD services. We were not very connected with our individuals that were involved in the schools. So she said she wanted to we left another program and she wanted to use us to go out and reach out to the schools. And so our main goal was to reach out to all the Greene County schools as a transition team and say, what can we do? First of all, we have these kids that were in early intervention, and where are they now? Have they gone through, there's multiple things they have to do to go through eligibility, especially once they're 16. But that transition piece is very, very important, and through Employment First, individuals with disabilities being competitively employed. And so that's what we did. We got together and said, what are we going to do? We each, in our opinion, Cindy Shivadecker is not here, also who works with us, all have our own strengths, and together we reached out to the schools and said, what can we do? These are the things we can offer, what can we do? And Donna said, well, let me get you with Jody. And boy, Jody had us hitting the ground running. She had ideas, and I mean, she was just so open to letting us come in, give our ideas, and she already had some super great ideas. And I'll be honest with you, it was really easy here. You made this very, very easy.
So now Kathy's the transition coordinator. So she knows a lot about the educational side of what we do in the classroom. I'm the business liaison, so I work with businesses in the community, creating opportunities, making connections. And then Brenda and Cindy are our job coaches. So they actually work with the students in the businesses. And when we got here, Jody had already connected with the Chamber of Commerce. So she was going to, I think, do what she was going to do with or without us probably. But she needed more people to really pull it off. So that's what we've been able to do. We've been able to work with her and the businesses in Yellow Springs who have done a fantastic job. We've worked with, I just wrote something that let's think. We worked with Mr. Baldwin, Bob Baldwin. We've worked on several of his properties, maintaining King's Yard. We've worked with the Mills Park Hotel. We've worked with the library, and we've worked with Dark Star Comics, and then we've worked with the Chamber on a variety of different things. Our current thing is where we're doing mobile shredding. So we have 2 students that have more significant disabilities, and they can't, we're having a difficult time finding work opportunities. So we purchased a shredder and a cart where we can take it into businesses. And so businesses can call us if they have documents that need to be destroyed. And so these students with more significant disabilities can actually be still working in the community, not just stuck in a classroom. They're actually out working just like the other students are. So very exciting. And the thing that excites me the most is we're working in 4 other school districts, and we've been able to use all of this as our prototype. So we're not doing as holistic of a program in any other district. So we kind of pick and choose what we're doing here and applying it to other districts. So it's very innovative though. And the best example is we had in Bellbrook a young man that needed to work in the community, and we didn't know how we were going to handle the liability, but Donna had figured out for us with how we can structure work experiences to fall under kind of the field trip insurance coverage. So anyway, so there's a lot of things that we've done here that we're able to transfer to other school districts all throughout the county. So very beneficial.
We've really been very welcomed here. We really have been, so we really appreciate, we brag about you all the time.
Well, thank you.
Well, and we brag about you because for me this is really exciting. For years I sat in transition meetings, which transition means going from one program to the other, like going from preschool into school age, or going from high school, maybe you're getting IEP services and going out into what you're going to do next. And for students that have significant disabilities, you need to start quite early training them on the different skills that would be needed. You can't just say in their senior year, here, I'm going to teach you a bunch of job skills, go. You need to really be thoughtful about that, and in IEP's transition plans start at age 14, and it's something that Ohio doesn't do well. They've sort of in their ratings haven't done well historically on that, so there's a big push with the agencies as well, getting people ready to be able to work or do something after they're done with school that's productive and that they can have a quality of life. And a lot of times you'll have a change and it trickles down and you end up either getting more rating or more bureaucracy, and you don't actually get help. And the things that would be a problem, a barrier to that happening year after year, would be that the services wouldn't blend together, the agency couldn't do this, there was all these different rules and bureaucracy, and there wasn't enough staff or shared resources or transportation or someone to go out to help make the school, help the school do this and cover everything else that needed to be done. And it was just hard to coordinate. So this is really one of the first examples where somebody changed a rule and got some money and did something with it that actually got us help. So I'm really proud that this is working this way. It's needed to happen for a long time. It allowed them to help us have better ideas of what to do, and it actually brought services here, and it also helps them fulfill the obligations they need and set up things early so they're prepared for the kids. So it is a true transition.
And it's a multi-agency, and that's the big thing, multi-agency. We're connecting with the school, we're getting to know the parents early on, and then we can build up that documentation. So like we said, if they don't qualify for our services, we can tell parents, well then, let's try this agency, or let's try that agency, and then we can, with the school, collectively take that information and give it to them, showing documentation of what this student has done, so these agencies aren't starting from ground zero, not knowing, so.
And the kids have skills, they're learning skills that are going to transfer, and they'll be set up with programs that will work for them, and they won't, there won't be that lag time where they've lost their opportunity to do something because they didn't have years of experience that was needed, just because we lacked the information or the connection.
In the state of Ohio, I don't know if you guys know, the employment rate for people that identify as having a disability is only 23%. So it's like you're 4 times more likely to be unemployed if you have a disability in the state of Ohio. And what's interesting about the transition process is that teachers are busy, and so they don't really often have the time to invest in looking at the post high school things. And so just because they're busy, they don't know. And then if you look at like the vocational rehabilitation agencies, they don't really understand the educational process. And so the two have not kind of work together very well. And it's interesting, I love doing what we're doing because we're able to kind of straddle that and figure out how can we help them understand each other. So it's very rewarding.
So that's why I very much wanted you to know who these people were, because they come every week, they work here, they're our pseudo staff, they're our adopted staff, and what they're doing with our staff is really important.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
very
much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you, Donna.
Yeah,
That's good.
it's really come together. I mean, there's just like synergies here that are.
Stay warm.
Did you park out back?
Yeah, it's okay.
You sure?
Yeah.
Alrighty, we are moving on to 2.4 administrative reports.
Thank you.
Who wants to go, Matt? Good night.
Hi, Kathy.
It was good seeing you.
You too. I used to work with Kathy at Huber Heights. So we walked in together and we were like, so she's awesome.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, sure.
So I have my reports up there. I'll just pull out a few things that are happening right now. So I thought it was really cool. Like the first thing up there is that our 5th and 6th graders recently went to the Dayton Art Institute, and it was a part of their launch and their hook for a project where they're blending language arts and art, visual art, to kind of there's a lot of things involved, but one of the things is to visually show like an element of literature, to be able to represent it not just in conversation and words, but also in images. And they were trying to kind of get some inspiration and learn more about visual art through this tour of the Dayton Art Institute. And Miss Lowe Cheryl Lowe it's her project that she's collaborating with Amy Meinhardt on. And one of the highlights, I think, is just that we haven't visited the Dayton Art Institute very often. And the kids loved it, and the docents there were just, so impressed with our students. And it's one of those things where when our kids go out into the community, we get a lot of props and accolades for how interested and connected our kids are to what they're experiencing. So I thought that was cool, worth highlighting. Some other things happening. We've got our health program happening right now with our 4th graders. Erica Klang is coming in from Planned Parenthood, and she's providing age-appropriate health education for kids. And this is the 3rd or 4th year that we've done this. We have a sustained program where we do 4th, 6th, middle school, and then some high school, 8th, 9th. Okay, so it's a great thing for our kids, and it was something that we knew we needed to make sure that we were doing, and so that's going really well. Something else that's great is I want to give a lot of, I want to kind of, pat John Gudgel on the back, even though he's not here, and also just our teachers and our news program, because we are doing an excellent job with Black History Month. It's always something that we really focus on and highlight here at school, in the classrooms, on the morning news. But this week he's had guest speakers every day coming in, community members that are talking about the history of Yellow Springs and specifically the role of African Americans in Yellow Springs and telling stories and just really awesome information for our students. They're learning about the rich history here and they're talking about the Little Art Theater and how it used to be segregated, and Jodie Pettiford was talking about how she remembers when there was a protest and they ended the segregation. The story about the barbershop, the story about the Conway group who moved here and they were ex-slaves that escaped, and then they were in DC and they came to Yellow Springs and established themselves here, and there's still relatives of theirs here, and just all these amazing stories that folks that live here know about. So they're coming in and sharing it with our kids on the morning news. A couple of our PTO parents and a parent of a student here, Toy and Basim Blunt, are coming in and bringing this awesome assembly that we're going to have tomorrow. And Basim has also been on the news every day this week, playing different characters. He was Obama one day. He was Martin Luther King Jr. He's just somebody else, a comedian. It wasn't Chris Rock, it was somebody else.
Kevin Hart.
And Kevin Hart. And so he's just like hyping it up, like getting the kids like really excited for this, and also sharing some elements of Black history. So it's cool. It's really, I think, important, and we're having fun with it too. So we're gonna have a great assembly tomorrow. And then there's something else on there that I don't think I'm going to highlight too much, but we've got some exciting news about a grant that we received that's going to open up some doors for us in outdoor education and also really establishing that in concert with some other things that we're doing. We're going to have more of a makerspace presence here for next year, definitely maybe by the end of the year. So it's really exciting. We're going to have a lot of hands-on, innovative learning and using our outdoor space in a much better way. So that's going to be really exciting to see that come together.
Okay. All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
That's exciting. All right.
Good evening. My board report's a little bit shorter, and it actually celebrates some highlights of student achievement and teacher achievement. On the upper right-hand side, you've got Jamie Adolph and his McKinney Power the Pen team. Jamie's a new teacher this year here at Yellow Springs. He's taken over for Aurelia Blake. Came out gangbusters, and kids winning best of rounds all over the place, and second places. You can't quite see it on that picture, but most everybody is carrying some kind of hardware or something. It was really, I don't know what you call a writing beatdown, but it was. So anyway. So what else do I have on there? So down on the lower left, I want to talk about two student athlete kind of things. This is Liz Smith here, and that shot, taken by me, is, well, she shot it, I photographed it rather. That's her 1,500th point for her high school credit. And if you know Liz Smith, I mean, it's not just that she's an athlete, she's just a remarkable kid. And so anyway, it was a nice, we had a plaque, the game was stopped, AD, coach, parents, it's just a real nice celebration. She's not the first one, but it's pretty rare when it happens. I think the last time might have been, 8 years ago or 10 years ago, I think, was a student athlete. So another student athlete that's not on there after the board report was submitted, Olivia Chick, Jody Chick's daughter, was the NBC League Swimmer of the Year. So that's another terrific kid who, not just athlete, but really a remarkable student and young adult as well. And then the bottom three to the right, I've reported out on the Alpha Project before, where we took up 10 kids up to Wycliffe City Schools and peri-local schools to teach them on a 2-day workshop about what PBL is, and then they did an extended distance PBL with one of our students was kind of a Sherpa for them, and their students created some projects, and they created meditation rooms, wiffle ball league, because they don't really have any after-school sports, just a lot of really cool things. And we did a Google Hangouts in Sada Amin's class with her 6th graders. They were kind of critiquers for the teams that were presenting down there, so you can kind of see. There's Joe Mindy Berman with his sister proudly over his shoulder, and it's great. And so other kids, you can sort of see the Wycliffe kids or the Perry kids on the computer screen and how they're trying to do some nice distance conferencing. So.
And kudos to you, Dr. Cryer, for enabling this day of empowerment to happen, because I know we've been chiseling away at girls' night, boys' night, empowerment stuff all along, and creating it so that all the students who participate in the course of a day is pretty incredible.
Well,
Those teachers are incredible, but
no, and you were on the very ground floor of it. And I don't want to talk too much about it because that's next month's board report. So thank you.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned.
okay.
Okay, and in my report, I just have some updates of what's been going on. The preschool program did get the 5-star rating from Step Up to Quality. And that is the highest rating that they can get, and they did need to get that to continue getting funding from the state. And we started the process last year. Janice Kombuski, I just want to tell her that thank you for all the work she did for that. I would say there's probably, if you think of a trunk full of paperwork, is about how much paperwork we had to do for that to turn in. And then they reviewed it over the summer and came and did a visit. And interviewed her in the fall, and then it just took this long to get the rating. So congratulations to them. I know that staff did a lot of work to make that happen. And then now that they're established, there's an initial registration. They will have to update that every year to keep their rating. There's a process that is now on top of the licensure process that they have to go through. So I wanted to make everybody aware of that. Under the school nurses, our school nurse Tina, that is here mostly at Mills Lawn but goes over to the high school as well, she got some vouchers through a program called Sight for Students. The VSP has partnered with the National Association of School Nurses to get vouchers for kids that would qualify that maybe otherwise would not be able to get glasses or an eye exam, and they can get them free with these vouchers. So as they're doing the hearing and vision screenings, she's giving those out when the kids qualify and they show a need. So they could go to an area provider and get those items for free. And then under technology, I know Jacob has been very busy. State tests are they're required to be online, computer-based. And so that takes a lot more setup and training for the staff. It's new for the staff, and I don't know if he's done the high school yet, but at the middle school showed the staff how to navigate around on that system. So, and we talked to them about where to find some resources so they can go ahead, and principals are going to have them do practice just so they know where they can get their bearings on that system. So he's been working on that quite a bit. And then in special education, I just wanted to give you a couple of updates of what's going on there. There's a picture of some of the people. Brenda wasn't there that day that you just met, but at the top, Linda Calder is doing a project-based learning activity that's about disability awareness for people that have physical disabilities and wheelchairs primarily, and was working with the Wright State wheelchair basketball athletes to have them come in and do a presentation. She's going to also, they're getting some wheelchairs to do some simulations so everyone could maybe try out, some of the kids could try out being wheelchair athletes themselves and see that people with physical disabilities have abilities, even though they're in a wheelchair. So there'll be a constellation of different activities that'll go along with that. And that's primarily with the 4th grade. She's having a presentation with the 4th grade. Is it Monday still? Sometimes they change on me.
They had to push it back,
I wonder.
but it's like just a week later.
Yeah, so they'll be coming in to do that presentation. And then at the middle school, high school, Hillary Riepenoff, Donna Holler, and Dave Johnson, they did a kind of career and college exploration. They focused on college last year, and this year they're doing more focus on career exploration, and they wanted to they did a fair last year, they had the kids put on the fair. So this year, they're having the students on their caseloads surveyed the entire student body to find out what they'd be interested in, and then they're gonna have to go and get folks to come in. They'll be making the calls to have them come in, and they're gonna organize and put on the fair themselves. And then they have some different activities that are broken out between middle school, lower high school, and then getting ready to graduate, like having speakers come in, working on building resume or application skills. So they're gonna take a planning day next week to kind of break out where they're at with that and get the rest of the activities planned out. They have it started and they've had the kids do some of the activities, but timing they're trying to work out. So hopefully they'll get their career fair organized and they'll get the results from all the kids and get some people in. I think the next phase will be getting the kids to actually find the people in the different fields of interest to come in, not only their field of interest, but what their peers are interested in. So that'll be interesting to see. And then obviously we talked about Jody and the group that came in, but they're also going to be, they were invited to present with the kids. The Bulldog Brigade was invited to come to the Chamber of Commerce, their annual, meeting, which will be held on February 16th at Mills Park Hotel. So the group will be presenting there. And then at the bottom, we had a little problem getting access. It kept closing on us, so I didn't put a link, but we got our annual state special education profile, and that should be in there as an attachment that you would have been able to look at. And it's ratings, there's indicators that just IDEA, the federal legislation, requires us to collect data, the state to collect data on 17.
It's actually attached to the end of this
You can,
document
yeah.
in my copy.
Yeah,
If
it
you
should
keep
be.
scrolling. There it is.
Yeah. So that's why we put it in as attachment instead of a link, but there's 17 indicators and we get data on that, and so does every district in the state. And we met everything that was reportable for, everything that we had enough data to be reported. So we're in pretty good shape. If we wouldn't have, there would be action required, some kind of action plan, or we'd have to work with our regional center to develop some kind of plan to address it. But we met all of our targets. So it's looking at different indicators surrounded by either assessment data. It's mostly assessment data for proficiency for reading and writing, reading and math for students with disabilities, and then participation. Some of it is actual documentation of things that did we turn in on time and what were our numbers like. But I go over those twice a year. One's a determination where you get a rating, and one's the data, and this is the data part. And then later you'll get a determination. Like if we ended up being met requirements, we'll go, yay, that's wonderful, there's nothing required. If it was needs assistance or needs significant assistance, then we'd be looking at making a plan. So we met or well exceeded all of the targets that were set, and so we're in really good shape.
Great. Good, thanks. Okay. We are now moving into the treasurer's report, 3.1.
There's not a lot that happens in January either. We start receiving our tax advances, and we did get that, but it's not anything that's really something I would want to report on, but we started getting our tax advances, and we'll get the rest of that in February and possibly March. I had, and just in case you noticed on the monthly, where I map out what happens every month, we had a sizable deposit under the other non-operating, and that's just when I bill the YS Public Schools Fund for, they reimburse us for the PBL coach stipends. We committed to do that for 2 years. The coaches were paid in 15-16, but then they also got paid in July and August of 16, so I really couldn't reimburse that until I finished paying them. And then we just had a meeting and I got that reimbursement. But what I have to do is, since those expenses happened last year, I have to deposit that as a revenue covering expenses that happened in a prior year. So that's a deposit in there. It just kind of stuck out when I was looking at my reports. We received our income tax collections for the last quarter of 2016. We received that on January 31st. Then I could compile where we were at in 2016 as compared to 2015. And unfortunately for the calendar year, we were 1.81% lower than 2015. But we had a pretty high growth year in 2015, so it's not necessarily a fair comparison. If you look at the 2016 to 2014, we still had about, I don't know, I think it was like a 6% growth or something. So I wasn't unhappy with it, and I had said that, I thought I typed that in there. If you look at the last couple pages of our report, I have an ongoing comparison for the casino tax and for the income tax. Yeah, if you go down to that, just to show. It's the second to last one. Right there. That's just our tax collections per quarter since the inception of the income tax. And I do the two columns out to the right. I do a fiscal year total to compare where we were in the prior fiscal year and then a calendar year total. So you can see we were negative. If you look at the very bottom second column to the right, it says negative 1.81%. That's comparing it to 2015. But it was 1,389,000, and then in 2014 it was 1.3 million. So we still, I look at this growth. And then if you look all the way up the graph, we hardly had any years that were under 1,389,000. So I still consider that a good year, but I did want to point out that it was 1.81% loss over last year, and I put in a growth this year of I think maybe 3% in the 5-year forecast. I can't remember off the top of my head. So we still have 2 more quarters to get paid for by the end of the fiscal year. Actually, there's one. We get paid in April, and then the other one doesn't come until July. So we'll get one more payment, and hopefully we'll come out to the good. And then casino tax. That's the last page.
It's always my
That's my
favorite one.
That's my favorite.
Because that's what's going to save us. Saving
I want this,
education
next
through
time I want this in bright colors, I want things to flash, I want like little coins to come down, little lemons to
I
spin
do
up.
like literally laugh when I
Yeah.
put this
It's so
comparison
atrocious.
together because
Yeah.
it's just depressing. It's really, I mean, we were supposed to be getting at
You mean what we
least
were told
twice
wasn't
this
true?
amount by now. I know. But then I don't know, are the casinos failing, or is it just not the growth that they'd expected? I don't know.
Or was it just a bait and
Or we
switch,
just sold
which is
them.
what
Yeah,
casinos are good at.
exactly.
The house always wins, baby.
That's pretty depressing.
Yeah.
So we did receive a little bit less than what we received in August, but it's just not, casino tax is just not a good topic. So,
So can I just add that Public Health, Dade and Montgomery County just came out with their project that they did. It's a calendar where, kind of like the one that our students here participate in, where every month is some student artwork. This calendar is all about gambling, safety, and with all little kid illustrations. And I just, we have boxes and boxes of them at Public Health. And I was kind of like, oh, okay. But yeah.
Just gonna bring up
that really concludes my reports. I have not had the chance to look over any of K-6's new budget, so that's why I didn't really participate in that conversation. And also because of what Steve said, it goes back in the meat grinder and then does something completely different, so I really have no opinion. I think Mario's talked about a little bit more than I have, so I don't think we're enough for that. Unless you want to say anything about the preliminary
I mean,
reports.
well, I'm not I'm not an accountant, but it appears that our first year of the KSIC budget, now that'll shift and change as the legislature deals with it, will be a 4% increase in state funding for Yellow Springs schools. And then I think the second year is, I believe, a 1% on top of that. So if that holds up, that's actually not as good as 2 years ago, but it's better than I think Don predicted.
It's better than a boot in the groin.
Sure, it's better than what we had the past 12 years before last year, right,
Right.
as well, so. All right.
All right, we'll see.
On that note, I don't think I can beat that one.
All right, so, we need,
We don't approve it, I don't know why that's on.
I don't, yeah, no, I don't, thank you. We don't need to approve that, so.
No rules right now.
Okay.
Okay, superintendent's report, update.
Okay, so this is the semi-annual bullying report, which we're required to, by law, to post this or at least share it with the Board of Education at a board meeting and put it on our site. And so here you have the semi-annual report for February of 2017. And important to note the definition of bullying. I put that in my board report. I should have it memorized by now. But really, it's multiple incidents of harassment of one person towards another, or a group of people towards another individual. And so these are the records based on that definition as has taken place within our high school, middle school, and elementary school. This is a little bit more than last year, I think, but or last time I should say, 6 months ago. But I don't know that it's any different than what it's been in previous years at this time. Frankly, I think it's really right around that. And of course, clearly, once again, the major challenges are always around bullying as middle school. You know, it's probably the age area that sort of 5th grade through 9th grade, and that's exactly that. All but two are 5th grade through 9th grade students, when I think bullying is the biggest challenge in schools across the state. So we're doing things to work on this. We continue to do changes in the middle. We continue to do other things that they're incorporating at the middle school to work with our kids. So that's the bullying report. Any questions about that before I move on to the next item? Okay, so surveys. I'm going to just very briefly kind of talk about that, and then I'll see if I can pull up a couple of interesting data points. So we've administered surveys now, and we are all but just about done. So we have a staff survey that's been administered, I think, last week, and we have the results from that. And I'm going to see if I can pull up some of those results. After tonight's meeting, I'm going to publish it and make it public. We'll put it on the website and share it with our community as well as our teachers. The results from that. And then we also have done a 4-6 survey as well that's been completed. 7-12, working on, right? And we should have that done in the next week. And then we have a parent survey that's being administered as we speak. And so folks can go to the link. If they go to our Yellow Springs Schools website, you can get on that survey and fill it out. Don did a terrific job, I think, putting the surveys together. Made some good changes, I think, that reflect where we're trying to go and some of the things we're trying to do, and so I appreciate her work with that. And so that's where we are with surveys. Now, I think I don't want to spend too much time on it today. We'll just kind of go through briefly, and I'll show you a couple, a little bit of the results, but probably at a future meeting, it may be something that we look at all the surveys collectively and kind of think about as a board and see what we want to do with some of that data. I think, just preliminarily looking at some of these surveys, it's really interesting. I think it's been 3-4 years since we've surveyed parents, so it's been a while. And so I think getting those results has been really interesting, just looking at them as they're coming in. We'll see how those turn out in the end after we're done, but we'll review more as we go forward. Just briefly, so we're using SurveyMonkey, and so here is one of the teacher surveys here, and so we basically have a series of questions that we're asking, and so this is sort of these are questions about technology, and then PBL instruction, and let me see here. So this is school facilities. How satisfied are you with the conditions of the school facilities? And so looks like 51% are dissatisfied or very dissatisfied with their school facilities, and only 20% of our staff is satisfied with their school facilities. And I don't think any of our single staff member is very satisfied with their school facilities right now. And so I think that orchestrates the point of why we were trying to at least explore facilities with the community and see what folks are interested in doing and have that conversation with parents and community members about the future of our schools and facilities. So I think this is an important data point to share. This is, well, that's about PBL funds, but I want to get to one that I think is worth checking out here. Well, they're all worth checking out, but let me see here. So about student fundraising, which is a whole new line of questioning we asked. The kinds of communication people would like to see and what they're receiving. Google Classroom, this is an interesting question because a new one again. How do you use Google Classroom to share information with parents? And so we have, we just kind of started working on Google Classroom, and so I guess it's pretty good that we have 20% of our teachers now working on it and using it, and 52% are not using it at this point, and 7% said, what is Google Classroom?
So just to point this out, this is an advanced feature in Google Classroom, sharing information with parents. So to have 20% of our teachers using it to share information with parents, as opposed to just with students, is
no, that's an excellent, good point, good distinction
really
there.
important thing.
So yeah, I think this is, I'm pretty happy with this actually, relatively speaking. We've just gotten started to work with this over the past year or two, and it's growing quickly. So social media, another new question, do you use social media? 50% of our teachers do, 48% I think said no. Have you liked the district Facebook pages? You can see those responses there. And do you follow Twitter? Twitter is not popular at this point.
Can't imagine why.
I've never been proud of our schools, but I
I'm actually happy to tweet a lot, actually. But, I don't
we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Back to a new time.
So let's see here. One more. Point out one more, and then I'll. Let me see here. So this is kind of an interesting one right here. So this is about. I'm going to put the principals on the spot here. This is specifically, there are several questions about their principals. And this will be a public document out there for everybody to see because we feel like it's important that we're transparent with the community. And so you can see my principal treats me with respect. 81% of the teachers and staff members taking this survey feel like their principals treat them with respect. And 7% were neutral, and 7% disagreed or strongly disagreed. So I think that's a really good indicator of a strong administrative team. Really great results, I think, and proud of these guys for that particular figure. You go on and on and on, and I'll show you one more. Since I put them on the spot, I'll put myself on the spot too. So this is all about the superintendent. The superintendent treats me with respect. You can see 89% of our educators agree with that statement. 0% strongly disagree, so that's nice for me.
Was this hacked by Russians by any chance?
Effective instructional leader, and so you know, we're happy with this data. I think it's really positive, and there's even one about the school board, which I think is very positive. The overall job the school board is doing, 72% are satisfied or very satisfied, and then 25% are neutral, and only 4% dissatisfied, and nobody very dissatisfied with the work you're doing. And so I think that's a good sign and positive feedback about the work you all are doing. So just wanted to showcase a couple of those for you. And if there were any questions about that, Arch let me fire them away at me. But so those surveys. So we're going to get more and more data. We'll get that out for everybody to see. Levy, I just wanted to talk very quickly about the levy and clear up, make sure that we're all on the same page about this, because there's a lot going on in terms of facilities, school levies, etc., and other levies going on. So this May 2017, we are on the ballot for a renewal levy. And so it's a renewal of our emergency levy that was first passed 5 years ago. It's just a renewable levy that we need those funds to continue to operate our buildings and continue to just keep the buildings open and keep them running. And so this is a renewal. We're not asking for any additional taxes on this levy in May, and so we won't be collecting any additional taxes from the community in May for this levy. And I want to distinguish that from the work we're about to do around doing some facilities exploration. with the community that could lead to a levy in a year from May, which is a long time from now, maybe May of 2018. So that's different than what we have going on this May, in May of 2017, which is a renewal levy. So I just wanted to clear that up and share with people when you get out to the polls in May of 2017, you're voting for a levy that's a renewal, and it's an emergency levy renewal, and there will be no additional taxes that we will be collecting on that levy. So that's all I have for my board report.
All right. We have a levy committee coming together?
We are working on it.
All right.
Actually, we are, we are
Yeah,
good.
good.
So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, that's good. All right, moving into the adoption calendar for administrative portion of the agenda, 4.2 through 4.8. Is there a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. All right, well, I think we're going to pull some of this out, right?
Sure.
Would you like to say a little bit about the
Yeah,
resolution?
yeah, probably a good idea, yeah, about both of those. So I can talk about 4.2 first and then 4.3. So 4.2 is the resolution doing two things: selecting the design professionals to provide those master planning services for us and do that facilities exploration process that we want to engage in over the next year and a half. And that's, we chose after a long process that involved requests for qualifications from firms, and we got several firms that went through that. Having a representative committee that included community members, teachers, administrators, all in this room here, and we went through each of the qualifications, and we ultimately rank ordered them using a rubric, and the top three were sent to the Board of Education for a formal interview at a public board meeting. And so at that meeting, at that meeting, the board interviewed all three of those firms, and ultimately decided that there were two firms that were in a virtual tie. And interesting thing about Ohio law, when you have two firms that are in a virtual tie, at that point you can ask for proposals and any clarifying questions and ask for actual cost figures. And so we did that from both firms, and it gave me actually an opportunity to tour some buildings that both firms had worked with. And so I went to see several buildings from both firms, and it was a really good opportunity to get to know the folks working for both those firms and see the work that they've done actually in schools. And it was kind of inspiring, honestly, to see some really great buildings. We ultimately chose Richley Architects after a very long process, who you all have seen, I think, twice now. And so we have Mark here today, and which is great, and representing the firm. And the cool thing, when I visited some of these, I visited two schools with Mike, and we saw Northmont High School, which you never get a chance to see that. It's an amazing building and the work that was done out there. They have this whole area called Thunderbolt Way, which is kind of goes all the way down the middle of the building, and it's pretty cool, some of the work that was done there. And then we went and saw Milton Union School, which is their work with a lot of green solutions, and their lead building. I think they're the most energy efficient school building in the entire state of Ohio.
It's running at 66 cents a square foot to heat and cool.
Wow.
They utilized all the green strategies. We're up there today, and there's a wind turbine just spinning like crazy, which was exciting. Even collecting water off the roof to flush the toilet. So it's pretty state of the art.
So it's pretty cool. And then, so I thought those two buildings were nice. I mean, in many ways, both those buildings are somewhat traditional in terms of the way the classrooms are designed and the hallways in many ways. But that has less to do with the architects and more to do with what the interests of those communities and schools actually wanted those buildings to look like. And so I think that's probably why Mike wanted to take me to the library, the Dayton Metro Library that they do. What's the name of that branch?
Northwest branch.
Northwest branch. If you've never been there, it is an amazing library branch that they've worked on, and I think it's probably one of the things you're most proud of in terms of the work.
It's the site. It's Fairview High School used to sit on the site, and that's where my father, who ran the company, learned he wanted to become an architect by a career day. Ended up working for Erskine Hart, and eventually became an owner of the firm. So it's right across from Miami Valley Country Club, or the hospital, Good Sam. It's real close.
Yeah, it's an amazing facility. It's a very modern design. They do what's called the butterfly roof, which is kind of interesting. that the right term?
Yes.
All right,
Yeah,
that's good.
perfect, good.
And Mike it was great because he kind of nerded out on me. We were in the parking lot. He started talking to me about how the way the water filters down and it goes into so what do you call that? Like a swell or is it cistern? I don't know. Anyway, it's where you park your cars and there's a curb and cistern, I guess, and everything kind of goes in this sort of vegetation area where it filters in, and it's all intentional. Every piece of this puzzle, and he talks about how the vegetation is perfect for that, and we went into discussions about all the different vegetation around there. And then we went into this amazing building. I got to tell you, what kind of inspired me the most about this was you walk into this library that is being used by this community. It's being used by a community that has been underserved in so many ways for a very long time. And they have this amazing library that they can go to and visit every day that they're proud of and they use. And it has this amazing kind of almost, what is it, like a maker, what do you call that space?
Maker space?
Like it's a maker space. It's this open area. And it's just an amazing library. I can't say enough about it, but it was very creative. They have some, they commissioned some art that's pretty incredible that hangs there, original art that was done, and it's a beautiful, beautiful building. I think you all did incredible work there with it, and I can see it being something like that being a school. I really could. And it would be pretty amazing to do something like that potentially in schools like ours. So we'll see where the process leads. Maybe we'll end up there, maybe not. But I'm excited about working with Mike and Mark on this process. I think when you think about where you want to go with things and your future and everything that's involved with this process, I couldn't imagine a better partner for us to be working with and meeting our community. Somebody asked me a question when we were trying to make the final decision about who we should be going with on this project. They said, well, who's more like Yellow Springs? And it was pretty darn obvious. It was Mike and Mark and what they're all about and represent, and their Dayton firm. And so it's really nice to have you all here and on board. So that's one resolution. The second resolution is to participate in the OFCC. It says OSFC. Is that going to be okay if we say OSFC?
I read it.
Okay. So the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission expedited local partnership program, which what basically means is that we need to, if we want to get some of the services that the OFCC gives, which are things like facilities planning, an evaluation of the current value of the facilities and what it would cost to renovate those facilities. They do an assessment of renovation versus building new, and whether it would be worth it to renovate or whether they make a recommendation to build new, and they give you that information. They also do an enrollment study projection, so they'll check that out and see where that is, and all of that is done free of charge for us as being part of the ELPP process. But what has to happen is the board has to officially sign up for it. And then if we stick with them with this project, then the OFCC would stick with us all the way through, and if we decide to build and the community decides that and the community decides to vote, then we could decide to stick with them. And if we do, then we would have to pay, I believe it was, they would pay 17% of the project that was done. So there's some misconceptions out there that I probably need to clear up right now, which is that, that there's this OFCC thing that the state will pay for 50% of your building. That was the case for some school districts, absolutely not the case for us, and it hasn't changed over the years. We've never been at that 50% threshold at all, and right now we're probably in the best position we've been in with the Ohio Facilities Commission at 17%. So they're only going to pay 17% of our costs because according to their figures, our property values are too high to get any additional funding from the state of Ohio. So I just want to be clear about that. So the thing the community will have to wrestle with is, my time's up. I see. The thing the community will have to wrestle with is if it's worth it for 17% to jump through all the requirements and hoops and everything, and there is a significant amount of things required to be part of this work. And so we'll take step by step and do that, but in order to do it, the first step is to sign up for this, and then we can always opt out at a later time at a board meeting in the future.
So that was, I had two quick questions, and that was the second of them. The first one is, assuming we approve this resolution tonight, you then inform the commission that we've done this.
Yeah.
Do you have any sense of when they come out and begin to do these evaluations?
I'm gonna defer that question to, Mark, do you have any idea?
I don't know. Is it Glenn Rao
Yeah.
that you're working with? We can find out.
Well, I guess
So we did,
I can
yeah,
respond
that's right.
because we
Yeah.
were just at a
Yeah.
workshop with them on last Wednesday, and when I spoke with Glenn and spoke with the person who's from the commission at the table, they said, hopefully it would be within a month.
Oh, okay, so that's great. I
But
mean,
that
so,
depends on how many people are gonna,
but it's, I guess I was worried that it might be a year.
No.
Before I would say,
No.
okay,
no, but
great.
the
No.
sooner the
Which
better,
then
they
that would
both
be a reason
said.
to not
Right.
do it.
Yeah, they said that the reason why we wanted to make sure we got this on this agenda as opposed to March is because, as Aida said, the sooner the better. Right now, they're not as busy.
Right.
It could be another month, they could have all kinds of, requests and then, a long line and before you know it. And so that data actually will really help Mike and Mark with their work once they have that information too. So-
And so could you just elaborate briefly on what would happen for us to sever this relationship? I mean, we can do it literally at any point in the process?
Yes.
Opt out.
Yes.
So we can,
I mean, is that right? Is just a board resolution similar to this one to opt out?
okay,
And there's no fee involved with
No.
opting in.
right, okay.
So, one question about the enrollment study. Is it just, and I don't know if you know the answer, is it just in-district enrollment? Or will they look at open enrollment and just sort of the big picture of enrollment?
I don't know, that's a good question. Do you
I think
have-
they do look at projections, like the next 10 years. I'm not sure how open enrollment factors in.
Yeah, because it's a significant part
Right,
of our
for us.
enrollment. So it would be interesting to,
So that you think they would look at open enrollment? Yeah, I imagine they would. I would see, I would imagine why not.
curious if they're like,
Yeah. So, it'd be interesting. I mean, one of the things that our teachers have articulated for a very long time now and that we're certainly supportive of is we'd like to get to a point where we have 3 sections in each grade level in each building, because what happens is it really disrupts the education climate right now for us when you have 2 sections and then they go to the next grade level. In a small school system like ours, it means a lot of teachers may end up teaching middle and high school or have to switch grade levels every year, and that really hurts continuity and reduces the level of expertise our teachers need or could have if they continue to do the same grade level of kids several years in a row. And so we'd like to get to a point where we could do that and have a building that meets that for us. We can't do it now because our building is not big enough to be able to function in that way. Our buildings aren't big enough to be able to function in that way.
Okay, thanks. Anything else you want to talk about the school calendar or?
Yeah, so the school calendar, yeah, I should talk about that too. So the school calendar is very similar to the way it was the last 2 years. And so we have, it starts off, except this year we're going a week later in August. Because what has happened is the past couple of years it's sort of creeped up earlier and earlier in August, the way the calendar is. And so now I think we're in that 3rd week of August instead of the end of the 2nd week. So it's going to be a little bit better in terms of start time. It ends May 31st, so we will be out of school by May 31st, assuming we don't have significant amounts of snow days. We still have 2 weeks at holiday time in December and January. We still have a week at spring break. So really very similar to this calendar, except it ends on May 31st.
All right.
And then we want to thank Dan Rudolph and Martha Armstrong for donations. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, both of these are makerspace type donations, is that right? Or in engineering?
Martha Armstrong donated a lathe, her father's shopsmith lathe.
And Dan Rudolph, a whole soldering set, I think 9 different stations, and something meter that's really complex.
Meter.
And
Some
you still don't have the permission yet to use it.
Yeah, so that's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you to both of them.
Yeah. All right, anybody have anything else? Okay. We have a roll call.
Steve,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Aida,
Yes.
Sean,
yes.
Sylvia.
Yes.
All right, now we're moving on to the personnel portion of the consent calendar, and that is 4.9 through 4.10. A motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
All right, is there pretty much standard.
Yeah, so Kelly is, he was a coach, coaches in the community in baseball, and, he, I think, was gonna coach, but I think some work things came up, so he's not gonna be able to do it anymore, so that's why you have a resignation and employment in baseball.
All right. Anybody have anything else? No? Roll call.
Ian,
Yes.
Aida,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes?
Sylvia,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
All right. Moving into board communications, Green County Career Center report.
Well, the biggest thing I think that's going on right now is the attempt to pursue this aerospace training facility. And so Dave Deskins, the superintendent, working with a number of consultants, lobbyists, and elected officials, there's now some language in a piece of legislation that would help to fund the building of this. Now, that's, like with K-6 budget, that's merely the beginning. That's not anywhere near the end, but it's another step towards pursuing this project. And so, yeah, we'll see how it goes. Dave's a bulldog about this.
And my understanding that was no small feat either.
It was
taking a
no small feat.
lot of efforts and.
A lot of meetings, a lot of herding cats, and yeah, he's done a remarkable job at getting all the right people to sit around the same table at the same time. So, yeah.
All right. All right, moving on to 5.2. Any other board member items? Anybody have anything?
I guess just following on the Olivia Chick news that you shared, the girls swim team overall won the Metro Buckeye Conference Championship.
Very cool.
Second year in a row.
That's right.
That's right. Street.
Well, the board did make a commitment to making Yellow Springs an athletic powerhouse. We are moving in that. So.
That was not on the strategic plan.
I don't know if this is the right time. I'm sorry, Matt, you very quickly went over the Lowe's grant in as your report, but then didn't say anything about it. I thought you were going to come back to it. I don't know if you want to say anything.
next month?
Or you want to do it next month?
Save it for March.
I'm looking at Don just because
Yeah.
there was something about like an acceptance letter and
Okay,
things like that.
that's fine.
But
We can't particularly
okay,
talk about it.
that's fine. I just
want.
We don't want to
But there's one more thing I forgot to talk about if I could.
I'll brag a lot about it next month. Okay.
John Creighton
Oh, that's
is
right.
being recognized by the Ohio School Boards Association for 10 years of board service, and they want to
We're having a big party for it.
party for you, and they want all of us to go. And we're excited about, and we'll see if we can all go, hopefully we can. And then the other thing is that, so congratulations, Sean, that's wonderful. And the other thing is the doorbell entry systems are being installed. There's one here on the store now, and it's going to be fully functional tomorrow. And there's one being installed probably at the high school tomorrow. So we are going to move forward, and that's starting to take effect.
It works.
As soon as possible. So yeah, it works. Yes.
So the only thing I want to say is that the board had a work session yesterday, and it was Mario and Don both did some incredible work, and we had a presentation on the 2020 update of the strategic plan, and it was quite an exceptional update, and appreciate the work that you did, and we spent
Yes.
the evening yesterday together kind of going through that. So I look forward to when that's available to everybody else and so forth. So, but thank you, and I want to let the public know that happened. Okay, anybody, anything else? All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yeah. Wow.
So
Does that mean the calendar's official then for next year?